First player is going to be joining us on the stage. He did it once, can he do it again? It's SamuelTsao. And his opponent, seemingly the all-American hero, it's Muzzy.
Muzzy versus SamuelTsao!
Samuel, I guess he's sort of under the radar. He qualified from Winter Championships, and since then he hasn't really done anything.
Muzzy
is definitely a very strong player. Even Tom has mentioned several times that Muzzy is a force to be reckoned with.
He has weird decks compared to the field, so I guess some people could underestimate him. I might be underestimating him, so yeah, I think SamuelTsao might surprise a bunch of people.
I really didn't want to see him in my group, but there he is.
Muzzy versus SamuelTsao! Let's see what you got!
On paper, you could say SamuelTsao has had his work cut out for him today, to be completely honest, but he's been doing well so far, and even Muzzy's saying, actually, I just don't know that much. I don't really know what he's been up to. SamuelTsao did actually go back and focus on school for most of the year. So, you know, Muzzy's kind of like, yeah, you know, he must be decent. He's bringing some kind of off list, one of which we're going to see straight away in game number 1. But yeah, just saying, I might be underestimating him. Everyone might be underestimating him. And so far, SamuelTsao's doing pretty well.
I mean, it might fall to me to be the bad guy again here, but I don't think he played particularly well in his opening series. I think there were a number of pretty severe mistakes that he made, as well as some questionable plays. Everyone will make questionable plays that there will be debate and argument over. But I think SamuelTsao definitely really very much faltered in a couple of positions. But despite that, he is here, he is in this position, he has a glorious opportunity to very much follow in the footsteps of Dokpone and come out of his group as a winner, as the underdog of the group, but I think he will have to tighten up his play to do that against Muzzy.
Yeah, I mean, I asked him specifically when I interviewed him after he won his first match. I said, you know, what was going on, basically? You were a bit close on the rope, you actually missed some attacks in certain turns, like, you know, how were you feeling? What was happening? And he said, you know, I was very nervous. It was my first match, you know, on this kind of extremely large world stage. But we'll see what happens, because it's all good and well saying I was kind of afraid, you know, a bit nervous, didn't play so well. But you've got to make sure to fix it, right? You know, if you just say you were nervous, and then the next match you're very nervous and you don't play well, and then the next match you don't play well, you might not even get that far. So we'll see if there's going to be the improvements here. It is SamuelTsao going to be the odd one out here, as he's playing Zoo Warlock, not Control or Cube, the general. Although Cube and Control are two different styles, it's a late game Warlock, basically. He's come for the Zoo. What do you make of this as a choice? I think it's a comfort pick.
I do. SamuelTsao is an aggressive player. We have a lot of evidence of that. He confesses it himself that he prefers playing aggro. Tom60229 called him out as a practice partner who helped him improve at aggro decks, because he is not naturally an aggro player. And I think it's also shown he looked more comfortable playing his aggressive decks in his previous series than he did with, say, his Raza Priest.
Yeah.
So I do honestly think this is just a comfort pick, that he just didn't really feel like he could pilot a Control Warlock to the level where he could, for example, win a mirror against Muzzy in a Control Warlock matchup, right? Sure. That's something you might have to do if you bring that deck to this tournament, so I think he's just fallen back on Zoo.
Yeah, and just a few quick notes on the Zoo as well. It's not really that common. It feels almost like a slightly older list. It's double Demon Fire, double Blood Fury Potion, so the kind of buff style of Zoo as opposed to just
make a demon on one and go ham.
Yeah, as opposed to heavily relying on just minions. It's actually just got that kind of, drop a Void Walker, and that's a kind of threat in itself.
Right. Looking at the matchup data that we do have from HS Replay, the Zoo has 3 unfavorables against Muzzy's lineup, so it's something that's going to have to struggle and eke out a win here somewhere, Muzzy's aggro druid opener here is looking right up there in terms of power level. Early buffs are very, very much what you're looking for, trying to snowball the board state, and then the Crypt Lord is just a massive roadblock for letting Zoo dictate any value trades on their own terms.
Yeah, I will say what is looking good for SamuelTsao, at least at this moment, is that, believe it or not, the Soulfire. Like an early sort of tempo-based Soulfire, although it kind of feels bad to... I think people get in the lock of, oh, you Soulfire in the face to kill them, right? It's like, well, no, in this matchup, when every single minion on board counts, it's actually very good. 1 mana, kill almost any minion because of the 4 damage it does. Yeah, you discard a card, but you can fill that up very quickly anyway. There's a lot of Galactic Crawlers knocking about in this game.
There is. That is always the big if, right? You can be unfavored in a matchup, and if that matchup is up against Pirates, you can throw a Galactic Crawler in your deck, and that can change quite a few percentage points. Or 2.
So far, just being the, as expected in any board-focused matchup like this, it's just very much, I am going to kill your minions until you cannot kill my minions. Is the rough game plan, at least for the early stages. But cards like Living Mana can throw that kind of out the window, because unless, you know, Zeus somehow gets double Dreadlord, for example, clearing off a Living Mana unless you're already very ahead is actually extremely difficult. Especially with this buff version, you kind of want to make 1 big guy or 2 big guys as opposed to a very wide board. Well, speaking of big guys, there's the Blood Fury Potion.
I also wonder, Gul'dan. I wonder of the merits of Blood Fury Potion versus Soulfire play this turn, because any turn you leave up Crypt Lord, you're asking for the potential for it to snowball out of control against you. If you can deal with it the turn it comes down, generally that is a more winning position for you than not. But risking discarding the Blood Fury Potion, which, as I mentioned before, like landing an early demon and then just going hard with it, just landing those big buffs, is very much the game plan of this style of 2.
It really is, and you can just go off the back of that. And I don't mind this, just get the attack in on the Crypt Lord. It's less likely to go that insane at 1 health. Like, how many minions are going to be played this turn? Right. There's, of course, buffs, but yeah, you can get in that spot where it's almost as if, like, if you're the Druid, you just don't really let your opponent get attacks in next turn, because they're all just going into a Crypt Lord, because the health's like 9, 10 plus. That's a huge advantage in this kind of scrappy matchup early on.
Yeah, SamuelTsao will also be thinking along the lines of, hey, you know, if this Crypt Lord does really go off this turn, it's probably going to be off the back of patches. You know, a minion coming down, summoning patches alongside it. If that's my opponent's turn, there's a good chance I've got Galactic Crawler counterplay to that anyway. So that's a fine outcome for me.
That should be a very good outcome, right? Double Galactic as well would be good.
Mark Trade was the play I was looking at this turn. Good recognition from Muzzy, passing up the card draw, recognizing that the tempo is far more important here, just trading through the big Blood Fury Potion buff. And now he's well in control of this board at the moment, but SamuelTsao does have that Soulfire swing to come back at any time he wants.
Yeah, and SamuelTsao is also, isn't one of the players who's forgone Gul'dan. He's actually playing the Death Knight in his list, and that means that if the game continues to, you know, sort of go and go and go and go, then there is a chance that Gul'dan just says, okay, now I do too much that the Druid can handle.
Yeah, Blood Reaver Gul'dan is a card that I've always kind of disliked in Zoo. I feel like its win rate in matches where you get to turn 10 is very much based on the fact that you have got to turn 10 against a deck where you can then outlast them by life tapping at that point anyway. It pans out in the stats, really. Blood Reaver Gul'dan is a sub 50% win rate card in most matchups when it is even played, let alone when it just sits in your hand clogging your draw and you don't get to play it because it's too expensive. So I like the more streamlined list where more of your cards are available, especially off a life tap. If you tap, you want a bunch of cheap cards in your deck, so when you life tap, you still draw a play that you can drop on the same turn. But I seem to be overwhelmingly outvoted on this, because almost everyone runs Blood Reaver Gul'dan in their Zoo lists.
Yeah, I think it's... for the games it wins you, you were never going to win with any other card, I don't think. I don't think the one card would ever be enough. You could be like, we'll play more early stuff so you win. It's like, they're not the games you win with Gul'dan.
Right.
Like, the games you win with Gul'dan are the games you either keep even for long enough, or you have that insane, well, this is just a lot of damage turn. But whether that's better is very tough, right? Because the deck becomes very, very different.
My argument to that is, you know, the control warlocks or the priests, for example, where you jam cooldown after you've drawn out a bunch of removal and win the game with it. Would you have got there just through pressure if that cooldown that has been in your hand for several turns was just a more aggressive, more playable card? Would that have got you over the line anyway? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure some of these very smart players who are playing Blood Reaver Gul'dan have done that, and their answer is very much in favor of playing it. So I'll just shut up.
Wait a while for that one. So Living Mana was played by Muzzy, and you know, he came off the back of a very close series where he actually needed exactly Living Mana to dig him out of a rough spot in a another very even matchup. And he's getting ahead now. SamuelTsao doesn't really have the capabilities to keep up, because you could say, well, you know, double Galaka or, you know, tap both, whatever. And it's like, well, he's still really behind here versus Muzzy. And you know, at any point, if any of these minions survive, say 2 to 3 of them even, any one both, and what does Zoo do at that point? You know, there isn't Implosion anymore. You know, there isn't an gang boss anymore that can kind of battle for the board long term. Gonna go for the Blood Fury Potion, drop a Galacta, and just kind of hope it's enough. But look at this, like, with Blood Fury Potion, the Voidwalker is still just a 4/4. That's just 2 minions. It means there's at least 4 left if he wants to trade. We can see now. Mark of the Lotus. What, best draw in his deck?
Yes.
By
a distance.
Literally
yes.
just the best draw?
Yes.
It's actually kind of insane.
The only draw that would have been better is if Muzzy had somehow managed to unnerf Innovate and put that back in his deck.
Tough draw.
Yeah, very good point. Who knows?
Great.
Maybe in the next Tavern Brawl you will be playing Muzzy's Aggro Druid as the Hall of Famer.
Maybe, and also, you know, if you don't know, I'm not one for playing tons of Tavern Brawl.
I'll
hold my hands up.
Yeah.
This Tavern Brawl, though, is nuts. Go and check that out very, very quickly. It's actually kind of insane. But what's also insane is this board for Muzzy. 4 3/3s against a Galacta Crawler. And maybe not even a Galacta Crawler for long. Or is Muzzy just going to go... Yeah, okay, he's just going to go all phase. Oh, God. The disrespect for a 2/3 against putting your opponent on lethal damage. There's a live tap. No taunts, not enough. SamuelTsao just couldn't grip the board like he wanted to, but Living Mana is a hell of a card to just take that one step further when the early game has been so even. Muzzy got there with the Aggro Druid. Talked a lot about Aggro Druid today, at least in the back, in the caster room, about how much it's not been performing today.
Yeah, I mean, the Druid wins, which there haven't really been many of, have really come off the back of Jade Druid more than anything, but Muzzy has been the one player that's shown serious success with Aggro Druid so far, so maybe he knows something others don't.
It was a truly remarkable race, to be honest. One of my favorite storylines of last year was the Muzzy Zalae race.
Right.
It was actually insane. Imagine that. Oh, I wasn't going to go to this tournament in Montreal, but the second I found out he was going, I booked my ticket. That's how insane those two were going at it.
I've watched a lot of Hearthstone tournaments in my time. I have never seen a tournament that was so dictated around what 2 particular players were doing than watching that broadcast. It didn't matter who was on stream. Every game that finished, we were getting an update of what had Muzzy done, what had Zalae done. It was so, enthralling to watch from start to finish. It was Muzzy, of course, that ended up coming out on top, and Zalae, heartbreaking for the amount of work that he put in that he doesn't get to get here. But hey, that's what the 2018 system is for, and things like 1, 2, and 3-star Masters will reward the hard work of players like Zalae and Muzzy going forward.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that progresses over the year. Is just, you know, keeping track of everyone's points, seeing who's where, who's going to push that little bit harder to get to the 3-stars Masters. But first off, these players are going to push that little bit harder to try and win this series. Muzzy 1-0 up, going across to this Dragon Highlander Priest against SamuelTsao's Aggro Druid. What do you think of Dragon Highlander? Because I genuinely was surprised that as many people brought it as they did.
I would agree with you. I think, you know, the fairly standard build, plus or minus the 1, 2, or 3 tech card floating slots, the Master Spell, no mission benter, that kind of argument, Raza versus Gadgetzan Auctioneer, or both, as we have seen in this tournament. I think it's just too strong to mess with, but A lot of the people who have brought Dragon Priest are being lauded as having the best decks in the tournament. I've heard people say Doc Pone has the best lineup in the tournament. He's playing Highlander Dragon.
Straza, Highlander Dragon.
Alex Straza, no Cobalt Scale bet. We'll get to that in a second. But then people have also said the same thing about Muzzy, who also has a very innovative Warlock deck that we will not be seeing because it is banned out in this tournament. But yeah, Doc Pone said that he felt like he was a dragon short in his list, so he just put in Alex Straza because he couldn't find anything better. Not playing Cobalt Scalebane.
Alex Straza's way better. Have you seen the golden animation for Alex Straza? It's insane.
Good point.
Let's get to this one. Dustbreaker is there, and a dragon is there, and that dragon is also good versus Aggro Druid. If once you can get there, the Primordial Drake, of course, absolutely insane. If you go to 8 mana.
And there's your big argument for why you want to run this deck. Duskbreaker just destroys aggro. And sure, you only get to play one copy of it, but you do also get to play another Spire Historian, which finds Duskbreaker a lot of the time because of the class bonus. So you get it on 4 with relative consistency. If it does come down on 4 against a Tempo Rogue, an Aggro Druid, or a Zoo, in the case of SamuelTsao, you're probably way up there in terms of winning.
You're feeling very good. Your hand would have to be pretty shoddy after that not to cash in on effectively having a free 3/3. There we go. Onto the board there.
In fact, the stats bear that out. Dustbreaker by far the highest win rate card to have in your opening hand outside of Raza and Anduin themselves.
I was going to say.
Right, and in this particular matchup, Shadow Reaper Anduin sometimes surplus to requirements as well. You'd rather have a Dustbreaker in a lot of spots.
Yeah, I mean, also as well, you think about it, if once you get to 8, you almost have like a double sort of win condition to a certain extent because of this Primordial Drake, right? Often you drop Primordial Drake against Aggro Druid, and as long as you do a good job of clearing the board and you're not quite dead the turn after, well, guess what? You normally actually just win. So the fact that Muzzy has both of these is actually pretty strong. We'll just have to see how the mid game goes. If Dustbreaker comes down and then Living Mana's played, okay, the game's back on for a couple of turns until the Primordial Drake hits.
Right, and this is something that some newer players can really struggle with Aggro Druid. They'll see a hand full of minions and think, fantastic, I've got stuff to play every turn. But actually more so with this deck, you want to be mulliganing and drawing the buffs because the minions will come. Your deck is cheap minions that you will play. You want to secure those Mark of the Lowest, Power of the Wild, Mark of Yasharaj, so you can start engineering your board states to play around things like Dustbreaker. Yeah.
And there's a lot of nuances as well in terms of, it's great if you have a 1-drop or 3 1-drops in your opening hand, but what order do you play them in? Sometimes you actually mulligan certain 1-drops to try and get others. It's not as straightforward as like entry level of, I want cheap stuff to play on my opening turns.
And go a step even further back, it comes down to which 1-drops or 0-drops you're playing in your deck, because we see Purple's list, he actually chose to cut Enchanted Raven from the, I forgot the name of the card there for a second.
How can you forget the name of that card? I'm sat
because
right
there's
here.
another Raven now. There's Raven Familiar. I nearly called it that. That was the problem. But yeah,
said Raven.
He cut Raven for Snowflipper Penguin, and cutting Raven is something that I've been looking to do for a very, very long time.
I knew you were going to go there. Need to get more original with you.
You wound me up. I was going to let it slide, and then you have to get the needle in.
Like you need an excuse to go at me.
It's true. Yeah, right. You're right. You're right.
Aha. So there's double buff opportunity here for SamuelTsao if he is thinking about this Dustbreaker turn, and that's one way to get around it, actually. He can trade the patches in as well just to make it clean. Right. Suddenly 5-5, 4-5, guess what? Having buffs is pretty good in this
This is exactly what I was saying. He could have had as many Fireflies and Cheap Pirates and Galacta Crawlers and whatever else as he'd have wanted in that position. He'd still be in a bad spot against Dustbreaker. By drawing the buffs and by recognizing when he needed to engineer his board state into a better position, now Muzzy is very much on the back foot trying to defend against this.
Yeah, and what game is there here? Like, is this actually, now that the silence is drawn, going to have to be silence on the Captain Go with the Dustbreaker? It feels terrible because the Dustbreaker becomes, instead of clearing a wide board, you kill Captain and you're like, oh, okay, but if he doesn't do that, what else is he going to do? Heal pass? Spirit Lash pass? You know.
He also really does want to play Raza on 5, because playing Raza on 5, just getting that done, simplifies your game plan so much moving forward. that he's almost obligated to do this, because if he doesn't do it on turn 4, he's essentially waiting until turn 6 to do it, and that seems like a recipe to just be dead.
And also, with a deck that does a lot of damage in small increments normally, that 2 heal a turn from Raza, you know, as early as possible actually adds up to quite a lot when you're not expecting to just get, you know, OTK to a certain extent.
And not necessarily always to face either, because it's a board control matchup, especially when you're playing the Dragon version that has a few extra chunky minions thrown in there. The 0 mana heal to a minion just to be able to pick up more value trades is actually very beneficial as well.
Ends up effectively healing your face anyway. You don't get hit in the face.
Exactly.
Crit Lord, not a terrible pickup here. Even if the board survived, the Savage Roar wasn't quite going to get there for SamuelTsao. So still has Raven as well, along with that mark of Yasharaj if he wanted to go that way. It's just going to get the minions down, hold the mark. As you said, just having buffs in hand isn't always terrible because you're probably going to drop it going forward. But again, there is a small window, I would say, for SamuelTsao, right? He has now until turn 8, basically, that we can see, of course, to kind of get the job done. He's halfway there, literally, 15 health. Acolyte. Oh, yeah, that's tough, right? Acolyte Lash isn't the end of the world, but you kind of do just want to slime Raza.
Remember that thing?
Yeah.
Any play that just involves not playing Raza, just... Oh, it feels bad.
I think as well, Raza's probably fine here because you need to punch through the Script Lord, right? It needs to die at some point. Raza's a 5/5.
He'd be facing 16 coming back the other way with Savage Roar Mark if he doesn't clear anything. He is going to deviate. He's going to deviate from the Raza play. Take the healing while he can, draw a card, draw. I mean, this turn does a lot of good things, don't get me wrong, but...
One more draw treat deeper for Dragonfire. You know, like you said, the list kind of goes down at this point, but again, you know, it's still going to be 2 less healing next turn. 2 less healing the turn after, you know, to a certain extent, of course. Yasharaj, the Raven did survive. Extra card draw always nice. There's another buff. Is it needed this turn? Just Hero Bow down to 3/1 potentially?
Right.
Because you kind of, at this point in the game, you're kind of on that living mana train with this buff. Unless you just set up lethal with Savage Roar next turn.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of flexible things that could happen, but I do like just the hero powering down.
He's got enough done with the early pressure, the early buffs, that a 3-minion Savage Roar might just get him over the line at some point in this game, and a 3-minion Savage Roar is still attainable. And this has definitely not swung back Muzzy's way just yet. He has a couple of turns that he can continue to just fight card for card. If Muzzy does pick up, you know, one more good answer off the cycle on this Acolyte, for example, then we're getting into living mana territory.
Yeah, and that's it as well, right? The one more good answer. There's Dragonfire, but there isn't Spirit Lash. And what's the other one I was thinking of? Circle's not in the deck, so there's very limited options actually for Dragon Priest or Dragon Highlander, should I say, to actually get there in terms of board play. Now there's the Drake and the Dragonfire, and Dragonfire would have to be literally there on turn 6, and it isn't for Muzzy. So the board's dead to Dragonfire whether you buff it or not. No point wasting it.
Shadow Word Horror is an availability.
It's true.
Thrall's going to come down here. He's going to go up to 17. There is 7 staring back on the board, plus the Savage Roar is 8 more, plus the Power of the Wild is 3 more. That looks good enough to me.
Just wasn't quite enough. Even next turn, there could have been Prophet Valiant to heal, which I'm sure Muzzy was thinking about, just to get into that turn 8, but turn 8 was not reached by Muzzy. SamuelTsao is going to even it up, go 1-1. His aggro druid, suddenly, at the end of the day, maybe they're not morning. Maybe they're not morning people. At the end of the day, they seem to wake up and get the job done.
It's fair. But yeah, that was almost the dream draw for aggro druid. He had a couple of minions, he got them down, and then he just chained bumps. He just kept increasing the stats on his dudes until the other guy blew up. That is aggro druid 101 right there, and Muzzy just didn't have the speed to deal with it, essentially.
The dodge of the Dustbreaker was huge, actually. It's actually insane. It's, as you said, the exact kind of answer you want to negate the Dustbreaker. Muzzy had a great opening hand that could get a lot of the job done, but wasn't quite enough. SamuelTsao evening it up. Looking good for him.
It certainly is. And what a story it would be if after day one, our 2 players that got out would be the only 2 players that anyone would dare describe as an underdog in this entire field.
That would be kind of nuts.
Because no one else is even close that you could put in that bracket. Even if you were really, really reaching to find something interesting to say on a Hearthstone broadcast, for example, you wouldn't even get anywhere near calling
I've never been in
anyone
that
else
situation. What are you talking
in
about?
this tournament an underdog.
No, it's absolutely. I mean, Admiral was heavily joking earlier, but it's like, oh yeah, between these players, there's like 50 World Championship performances,
Right.
and everyone's been to HCT or played in playoffs a million times between them all. But again, Dark, SamuelTsao, not quite the same story, but it could be one hell of a story for these guys if they do continue to push through and make it. But let's get into game number 3. It's going to be the rogue on rogue action. I do kind of like this mirror.
Elaborate.
It reminds me a lot of old Zoo mirrors, maybe even current Zoo mirrors, depending on the builds, but just of how ruthless you have to be with board control.
Yeah.
Like, nothing else matters. And there are a few heavy swing cards, like if you can get a cheap File Spine off, and by cheap I mean Backstab Coin, for example, and cheated File Spine almost,
Yes.
then that can really flip things on its head. But then you have Corridor Creeper to kind of go backwards on that as well. So there's a lot of topsy-turvy moments in this matchup, and I do quite enjoy it. And I will say that both players playing slightly different lists as well. Muzzy bringing Sonya, I absolutely love. That card is amazing.
I am
think it's
also
amazing.
a fan of the Sonya.
My number 1 card prediction from the expansion, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I put it number 1. I thought the effect, especially the way Rogue looks, Tempo Rogue, was insane. Like, almost all the cards do something.
Yep.
Whether they're a 5/5 or a 1/1, it just
Right.
doesn't matter. Like, they get work done.
We saw earlier on today, like, it didn't do much more than just make a bunch of 1/1 Saronite chain gangs, but like that was good
Pretty
enough.
good,
And that's not even one of the targets that you'd list high up there as
Bone
being high
Bear,
synergy.
File Spine, Van Cleef, even Keleseth.
Keleseth.
Keleseth on 2 into Sonya trade is
Yeah.
so funny. You just got no game versus this. It's insane. Let's see how it goes for these guys, though. SamuelTsao off to the old swashbuckler start. Muzzy a bit slower, but he does have the Corridor Creeper, so even SamuelTsao going wide with these potential smaller minions is only kind of doing Muzzy a favor.
By the way, did you see earlier Kalento's play around opening hand Corridor Creeper? It was very nice.
Remind me.
I think there was an Edwin in play for his opponent, and he had a bunch of small dudes, and he just traded in enough so that if there was a Corridor Creeper in the opponent's opening hand, it was 1 mana too expensive to be able to be played there.
Okay, I have a question.
It was really nice.
Now, well, I've got a question now, if you can remember. Did Kalento have a Creeper in hand?
Himself?
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Ah, okay. If he did that maths without his own Creeper to reference,
Sure, yeah.
that would be insane,
Yeah.
because that gets very difficult to do on top of hand tracking and everything else. But yeah, it's very much like the Arcane Giants, right? You can just
the
calculate
Yogg
it.
tracker.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Yogg tracker used to just be Arcane Giants. It's like, oh, what manner is this? Okay. But yeah, even plays like that are actually just insane. It really marks all of these players out as quite exceptional, to be honest. SamuelTsao is going to go wide with these minions, going to opt out of the hero power trade, for example. Just going to drop as much onto the board as possible. Muzzy now with the South Sea Captain and choice of SI7 agents. He has a flurry of 3 drops to play if he so desires.
So these 2 hands from these 2 players are the kind of hands that I actually really enjoy watching this matchup play out as well. They both have solid hands. They both have tempo options with stuff like SI and South Sea Captain pulling patches. But neither of them has the blowout. Like it's something where, as you said, you are just going to have to ruthlessly fight for board control back and forwards. And at some point, someone is going to make an inspired play or someone is going to make a mistake, and that is going to cost them the entire game. They are going to go tumbling down the mountain very quickly off the back of one small error.
And that's what I like about it. It's like there can even be one dagger hit wrong.
Yeah.
One dagger usage wrong. The hit might be great, but the fact you used the charge might be wrong. These tiny things. I actually thought to myself as soon as I said that I actually did that a little bit, but quite a joke. Yeah, no one knows, it's fine. But yeah, those tiny moves make the biggest difference, and now both players have a Corridor Creeper to play around with.
The other card that we, I guess, really haven't really touched on in terms of Muzzy's deck being a little unique is Cold Bloods, which were definitely, they were ever present in the deck when it first appeared and first rose to dominance, but disappeared fairly quickly afterwards, and Muzz is choosing to run them back again. I know Derek has mentioned that this is actually one of his favorite cards. He just says it feels good when you play it, and I kind of agree with him. There's just nothing like the feeling. Sticking Cold Blood on something, hitting them in the face, and then they can't deal with it, and then you get to hit them again.
It used to be the old, like the old conceal days, right? Just like Cold Blooded Tomb Pillager on 5 and just hit them and conceal. You'd be like,
that was just unfair, but you know.
It still felt good though if you were the one swinging.
Yeah.
I did think you were gonna say so. I know Derek was telling me that Muzzy used his list, and but I was like, oh really?
Yeah. Derek Brown, muse to the stars.
Wouldn't surprise me, funnily enough.
It would surprise me a lot.
Anyway, back to current live. Side 7 Agent number 1 was used by Muzzy, but doesn't really have anything too crazy to do this turn in terms of any super power plays here.
Well, he still has his patches, so the South Sea Captain is actually very, very nice this turn, allowing him to pick up a couple of value trades right off the bat.
It's all right. Feels very nice. He could have, enough minions there to play the Creeper as well.
Damn you, greedy!
Yeah. All right. Said earlier though, Valspine is often a huge swing in this matchup because you're playing effectively even games, right? So if there's an activator, which good job timing, there is now with Shadow Step, this Valspine could get some work done going forward.
Right. I like decision from Muzzy trading into the technically worse minion on the board because the 1/2 doesn't have any particular breakpoints here. It would have to be something fancy to take care of the South Sea Captain, and then it could pick up a value trade into a 1/1 patches for it to be an impact, whereas there are 2 South Sea Captains still remaining, SamuelTsao.
Yeah.
You just drop that, trade in with the buffed up patches. That's a much bigger deal and a much more likely scenario, so Muzzy divines that it is much more worth playing around than just the obvious play in front of him.
Yeah, and this is one of the kind of a strange play. I do wonder if the Shadow Step's going to come down on a 1/2. Just to be able to guarantee an activation on the Valspine next turn. If you don't and the board's clean, then, well, great, that's your only... You've got to rely on drawing what backstab next turn. And that is a scary moment to be one extra turn behind when you could have flipped the board in your favor next turn guaranteed. So it will be very interesting what SamuelTsao does. I think Shadow Stepping at the right time is vital with this deck. Okay, he's not gonna go for it. He's relying on the Corridor Creeper, right?
Yeah, the quote-unquote punish, though, from the trade into the patches instead of the Flame Elemental does happen, and now Muzzy is leaving himself slightly outnumbered on the board. And I did like your zoo analogy earlier, because the zoo mirror was quite often less decided by who had the most total stats in play, more so who had the most individual bodies in play.
Actual attacks.
Right, and that is very often true of this mirror as well, unless suddenly a Bone Mare comes down and then there's just a huge taunt in the way that needs to be dealt with.
It's Valspine or Burst.
Right, a lot of the time having more options, more flexibility with a range of minions means you're ahead, even if your opponent has 1 or 2 larger individual minions on their side.
So here, for example, Sonya could come down. There could be a trade into the SI, then replay the 1/1 SI to kill off the 1/2 and just leave a 1/1 on the board. And that wouldn't leave too much on the board itself, though, in terms of threats, as Sonya is a threat due to its ability, not her chunky 2/2 stats. So he's just going to go for the kill and get his own Corridor Creeper down, but look at this turn. I like it.
Yeah, this is the point you just about led into at the end of last turn, is that the Shadow Step was not a big concern, because SamuelTsao knew it was almost certain he'd have a 0-mana Corridor Creeper to play this turn to activate as well.
Yeah, even if Muzzy ignored all his minions, he just trades his own minions in. And so it's definitely a tough thing to play around and play against its Corridor Creeper. Also, looking now, they're really obvious Shadow Steps, things like Leroy, right, for the damage. But even Shadow Stepping, one of the best ones I've seen is Chain Gang. Like, if you Shadow Step that and get a lot of value out, it's 2 mana, generate additional minions. It's normally better a bit earlier on when you're doing the small trades. So
I think Shadow Step Chain Gang is pretty overrated, to be honest. I think it's a desperation play, and it should be reserved for
you're
a
a desperation play.
I think you're sorely overrated in a lot of situations. Yeah. But I think it should be reserved for a desperation play in a lot of spots, because actually the total value you're getting out of it is not that high.
Okay, it's going to be on the Valspan to combo with one of the other minions SamuelTsao has in hand next turn. I say one of the other minions, Captain, sorry, Valspan, obviously 3 mana when you Shadow Step it, so this is also good. Valspan is just good. It's just a good card.
Yep.
Gets the job done, especially when you know you can combo it next turn.
Is it time for Sonya to get some work done?
I believe so. Fortunate there's no dagger equipped.
Right.
Sonya could get even more work done. She can trade away the deckhand if it could charge. Patches is gone for Muzzy, right?
Yes.
That's also a funny one I've done before. Be like 10 mana.
Sure.
It was just trade. Oh, it's dead. Trade. Oh, it's dead. Replay. Trade. Oh, it's dead. There we go. Might only be a 1/1, but a 1 mana 1/1 that deals 2. Pretty good card in my book.
Now we are stampeding into those bone mare turns where the first real break point in terms of punishes for losing board control really come down. Neither player has the bone mare available to them just yet, but Muzzy is looking like he might be more likely to hang around on the board, although this Saronite is going to have something to say about it.
Yep, just leaving the 1 minion there that even if bone mare comes down, then oh no, there is the Valspine. You can go 2 ways as well. You could say, oh, if you Valspine everything off the board, then the Valspine's still there, you can trade it and use it to keep the board clear. Or you could just wait till he commits a bone mare and then just guarantee kill it. Leroy, though, not really super helpful in this instance. Is this actually just the board clear with the Cold Blood and the Valspine? Ugh. I mean, I think ugh sums it up, but can you make any better noises with any better players?
That's a very good question. You're trying to win the game of Valspine Chicken here, because you know your opponent Shadow Step their Valspine.
Imagine a hybrid of a Valspine and a chicken. That would be a scary minion.
But, you know, essentially in a matchup like this, like, he who tempo swings last, tempo swings hardest. So if you go with your Valspine and then just get your Valspine by them afterwards, you have come out very much behind in that exchange. So I think Muzzy would love not to do that. It's just a question of whether he irreversibly loses the board if he makes any other play.
He's going to hold the Valspine, use the activators though. So now Valspine much less flexible in Muzzy's hand, but I guess the odds on him drawing a playable card is still relatively high next turn. By playable, I mean playable with Valspine. Oh, it's actually relatively low. He only has 2 mana to mess with.
Yeah, he has 9 outs of his remaining 19. So, yeah, 50-50 region.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Yeah, the hand's looking almost mirrored at this point.
Actually, no, it's worse than that because 2 of those outs are Shadow Step. He would not have a target.
Just a little bit bad next time.
Yeah, not that.
I wonder whether you just Leroy and go there.
Of course, the counter argument, I mean, Bone Mare kind of puts it to task, but if you were to draw an expensive card in that situation, you'd be relatively happy. Let's say you just drew Tar Creeper, right? And your turn was just Tar Creeper here to contest this. You're fine with that anyway, right? So the argument for that kind of turn is if I draw a cheap activator for the Valspine, I need to Valspine. I have outs to do that. Otherwise, I can just draw like a mid-sized chunky minion that I can just drop anyway.
One of the issues is one of the cards Muzzy would really like, I imagine, would be Minstrel. But he couldn't combo Minstrel either. Right. So I don't know, maybe the Valspine was just a thing there. Maybe the Cold Blood Valspine, it got him a minion on the board.
I still don't like it.
It kept an activator.
I don't know what your plan was after they Valspine you back. I really don't.
Just draw Minstrel.
Sure.
And then probably like, I don't know, you have the deckhand, it's not bad. Maybe I'm just thinking of the bad memories on ladder where this happens to me. So I'm like, okay, I'll draw an activator next turn, Bone Mare, and then Bone Mare again. I'm like, no, please. I do like this though. Get the Leroy down, try and force some kind of dagger trade. Do you Valspine? I don't dislike it at this point. You're way ahead in pressure.
Right.
And again, there has to be... Muzzy has one deckhand that would like heavily punish the like deckhand into Bone Mare is like a scary thing. There still aren't that many cards that would combo that well with Vile Spine. I don't know. I think just playing it here is fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you push face for this one, go set to 13, and then Vile Spine the 1/1, then you would have, what, 9, 10 damage in play, 12, but you'd have 13 the next turn, so you would actually set up lethal with that play.
And also, SamuelTsao still has 2 Bone Mares in his deck. Like, how realistically is Muzzy going to kill all 3 minions? Like, not very without taking a lot of damage. There's the Minstrel, called it. Minstrel's in his deck, and he had the chance to draw it.
I wonder.
One mana off. It's pretty much nothing SamuelTsao can do, and now here's the combo. Vile Spines to spare at this point. 9 damage, play a 3/4 that sticks on the board, the 2/1's on the board, the Leroy's still on the board. Muzzy has nothing on the board.
Yeah.
And he can't even draw with Minstrel, because he's probably, you know, at least in the immediate future, thinking Minstrel into Vile Spine, not the other way around, because Leroy will have to die. I'm sure the Leroy video is like 15 years old this year or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Correct, it was from WoW, World of Warcraft.
Good.
I wonder.
SamuelTsao does always impress me as a newcomer. Like I said, I've had some criticisms with his actual lines of play, but he always looks very composed, and he is a considered player even to a fault at times. We've seen him rope out this tournament because he wants to consider every possible thought that comes into his mind, but the majority of the time, I think playing at such a slow pace probably does help him. He just needs to learn when animations are animations, and he needs to get on with his turn a little bit.
Yeah. I also think as well, as SamuelTsao does take the win there over Muzzy. Muzzy kind of ended up in a bit of a deep hole there he couldn't get out of. But yes, SamuelTsao, like among most of the other players, have said, kind of just don't want to mess up in the World Championships. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to make a silly play. There's probably the most people that are watching at any given point for this tournament, biggest tournament of all these players' career. Don't want to mess up, and I think SamuelTsao might just be one extra thin layer that's like, I'm just going to take an extra few seconds here, even though my options are limited. The plays are, you know, A or B, so...
And again, it speaks to him, again, bringing Zoo, as we talked about before. He doesn't want to mess up with any of his decks. And there is a man who has not been messing up too much so far, because there is the one and only so far to make it out of the group. 2-0 record, one underdog has done it. Can SamuelTsao follow suit?
Yeah, we're going to find out just after this. Don't go anywhere. Plenty more Hearthstone coming right up. We are back and ready to go with the final series of the day. SamuelTsao versus Muzzy. Samuel currently doing pretty well for himself against one of America's best.
Yeah, but he still has, for me, the big question to answer, which is, you know, is bringing a comfort pick, you know, a predictable pick, a familiar pick, a pick that really just speaks to wanting to go face. Bringing Zoo to this tournament, is it going to pay out? Because the matchups he was left with after banning out Muzzy's Warlock, he's unfavored in all of them with this deck.
Yeah, I know, you know, you're pretty much known as a very cold human being.
Sure.
What do you think about comfort picks, right? Obviously, not if the deck is bad, right? If the deck, Zoo is a decent deck, it's a decent appetite. What do you think of bringing comfort picks to tournaments? Do you think it's a good choice for the players that it affects?
I think if you are a truly high-level, full-time professional Hearthstone player, it is your job not to really have comfort picks. It's your job to decide what the best lineup is and then learn to play that lineup as well as you can play anything else. That's a very different story, though, when you come to some people like SamuelTsao and Doc Pone, who are not full-time professional Hearthstone players. They have other commitments, they play on the side, and they are very, very good at what they do. But the byproduct of that is that you don't necessarily have the time to master 20 or 30 different decks to the same high level.
Reasonable. I'll let you off with that answer. I thought you were going to be harsher. It's wrong. It's what I was half expecting, but
Well,
okay.
that was the TLDR version of what I said.
But you said it in a very nice way, which is our job. Okay. So that's very reasonable. Getting this game though, and these hands, I do like SamuelTsAo's fairly slow approach so far. Yes, the 2-drop he could have played was Golaka Crawler. Yes, you're probably getting value from this, but he's chosen to tap, get plenty of resources. Now he has the double Bowmare for very late game. He also has the Corridor Creeper and a bit of a good push early on. The Tar Creeper, a bit of a funky pick in Rogue at the moment, I would say, as a tech choice, I would call it. But it is going to be doing work versus this buffed up Flaming.
I do think it pairs nicely with Cold Blood, though, when you put those two things together. Not only is it itself a high health target that can stick to the board and land Cold Blood on, you can also, as I was talking earlier, achieve that fantastic feeling of putting Cold Blood on something, hide it behind a Tar Creeper, and then it gets to attack again the next turn.
Just imagine you perusing a menu of it'd be like a wine menu to pair with certain meals, but it's tech choice.
Yeah.
SamuelTsao working out whether he wants to pass or not. He's going to go for it. I feel like attacking in would have only given Muzzy a stronger turn at that point. So
it would have been an insane decision to attack into that target.
Yeah. Double captain and deckhand here for Muzzy. Patches would, of course, come out to play as well. SamuelTsao does have that Golaka Crawler ready to go. And I think, was it Orange who mentioned this? When we were talking about open deck lists and the impact it has on a player's preparation, a player's tournament play, he's like, yeah, what was interesting is when you practice against a deck, run double Golaka, you throw the pirates, but then the player that has the Galakas, the player who has the Galakas will know you'll throw the pirates, so then do you throw the pirates? Because if they throw the Galakas, it went down a very, very long and winding hole, I would say, but ended up there, normally just playing out your cards is pretty good, but we might see the benefit of SamuelTsao holding on to this Golaka this matchup. Sonya though, getting some work done. Suddenly, even a 1-mana 3/1 taunt, not a bad card if the Tar Creeper ends up being traded too.
That play was so sick. Muzzy just played around everything. There just isn't a good turn.
Nope. Your natural response is Dreadlord, and then you think, oh wait, I just give Sonya more value. Awkward.
The Demon Fire pickup does make things just a little bit interesting, but yeah, the way Muzzy manipulated that situation to stop any value trades happening immediately. He also shut down the option of second Crystal Weaver, buffing up the Flame Imp to then get a value trade into his Tar Creeper. He's left himself back with a bunch of charges that can come out alongside South Sea Captains and function as more cheap removal. All the while discounting double corridor. Like, there's so much going on with that play from Muzzy.
And so much going on with his hand, you sort of led to it then, where the double corridor creeper is very swiftly going to become 0 mana. And that almost negates having the pirates with the Golaka, right? Because, like, you can go, okay, I'm going to double pirate one's captain so it's buffing. Oh no, you Golaka me. By the way, I have 2 5/5s as well. Can't Golaka the worms, unfortunately, maybe, so... Ooh, wait, SamuelTsao, you have to do something.
You do have to do something.
Okay, right. Wow.
Yeah, like I said, the Demon Fire made life a little bit interesting because it gave him that answer. But
respect, though, to Sonya is insane.
I could carry on with Muzzy's play. Like, he played around Golaka Crawlers because he never left any of the pirates on the board. He played around Despicable Dreadlord on curve because that just would have left Sonya alive the whole time he had the pirates to charge. Like, I've just named like 9 different cards this dude played around that turn.
Yeah, and even with this, the Tar Creeper with the Cold Blood, as you mentioned, it's just getting him. Tar Creepers aren't supposed to hit you hard. That's built into the card design. Now Dreadlord, like, yes, so what? So what? There's 10 damage, which is the enabling of these Corridor Creepers. It's insane. SamuelTsao probably relying on some kind of Bowmare play next turn. But is it going to be enough? Maybe there's the Homunculus and the Crystal Weaver. But still, just 10 damage at least.
So many options.
It's 1 off lethal, right?
Because the deck hand in hand is a 1/1 and not a 2/1.
I think so. That's right, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Was a man from Hippolytus.
There was just a brief moment where I glanced at the hand and I'm there like, oh yeah, this and that, and I'm like, did I just not count?
No,
I'm like pretty sure it's one off.
It was the first thing I did. I counted it.
You got me.
Yeah. No bone mare for you, my friend. Except there is a bone mare for you, my friend, because Corridor Creeper.
What a card.
Yeah.
I would like to have known how long it would have taken, or general consensus made of Creeper being extremely strong, if like Team LoL didn't display it for such a wide audience in Trinity, right? You know, it'd just be very interesting if we could go to an alternate timeline where they just didn't play that card, and then just to see how many days. I'm not saying it would take months. I'm saying how many days would it take for someone to pick it up?
I mean, there were other people involved, like Amnesiac and Ike were very much involved in the whole thing.
By
as well,
Team LoL, I mean,
okay,
the
we're going to rule those out.
Yeah,
Sure.
the squad.
Someone would have figured it out. The very first time you put this card in your deck and watch what happens, you kind of figure it out, right? Which does make you wonder how it got this far.
Don't tell me what to do. There's the buff. So SamuelTsao trying to mount some kind of defense, but Muzzy still has a lot of gas in the tank here. Double captain on its own is a bit of a pain to deal with. The double buff going on the Swashbuckler as well. Tar Creeper we've seen just be a bit of a pest in itself in this matchup, even with some of the buff minions. Valkyria. This game can go very sideways very quickly depending on what card that offers.
The Tar Creeper here is so clutch, though, because the way these Creepers trade through mean that he's sat around with low health minions, but that Tar Creeper again puts up the barrier that SamuelTsao has to get through first and foremost. He can't take the trades in the way that he would ideally want to.
So Tar Creepers have been a nightmare for SamuelTsao this game. One of them just by being cold-blooded and punching you in the face really hard. I didn't even know Tar Creepers had blood.
Too soon.
Just Tar.
Story checks out.
My immersion. Ruined. Here come the trades. Nothing too rocket science about this, but again, putting SamuelTsao on 5 now with the dagger swing. Can afford to do that because of the extra durability there. Still has 1 knocking down. You still want to keep hold of 1 mainly for your second deckhand, for example, but look at this Golaka. Would it have been better just as a 2-3-on-2 instead of the tap? Maybe, maybe not, because then Muzzy would have played differently.
Did he really tap turn 2 and play nothing?
Yeah, he played the, turn 3, I apologize. It was tap turn 3 with the flaming.
Huh.
That's what I mean, like.
Do you remember the board state he was facing? No. Okay. That's a valid answer. I'm curious, honestly. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I was clearly occupied with something else at that moment and didn't notice that happened.
Just chilling.
That is definitely a big talking point if he did not choose to develop an extra 2-3 that early.
Yeah, he passed that. Like I said early on, he was playing quite slowly. And let's just bear in mind for a second, this crawler and these 2 bone mares have been in hand since the game began. This is not really what you want to do. So SamuelTsao has been playing with maybe, a hand tied behind his back to a certain extent in terms of his opening hand. But Muzzy the Merciless, gonna break through this quite easily.
Yep, he just gets there. It was a very clean setup the way he did it. I think it was such an odd-looking play on the previous turn that I think he'd ended up calculating exactly what a bone mare looked like from his opponent. You can see with how quickly he then played that lethal out after.
There were 3 cards in the opening hand that were never played. You've got to put one of them on bone mare. At least the Gul'dan bone mare, Kappa. I don't know, like pass. Like something you wouldn't have played.
Blue Eyes White Dragon.
There you go. Yeah. Something, because again, you've got to think when do you get to the point where holding a Golaka is just not worth it? And we saw Muzzy then didn't really give SamuelTsao an opportunity to play the Golakas he knew he had.
Right, I mean, this was a discussion. You were talking about the kind of pirate open deck list meta discussion that we had with Orange. And you asked at that point, well, if you know your opponent's throwing the pirates away, do you ever throw the Golaka away? And I said to Orange, well, no, you just keep it. And if you need to play it on turn 2, you just play it on turn 2, right? And Orange said, yeah, exactly. You just play it on turn 2 if you need to.
He was talking about Hunter.
Sure.
To be fair.
Very,
just to give that caveat.
very different beast.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hunter jokes. Okay, well, game number 5. These two players taking it all the way to the last possible game. It's going to come down to Priest versus Zoo. Not a matchup I have tons of experience in, to be honest. Don't really see a lot of Zoo on ladder. I've kind of not played too much Priest recently. Warlock's been taking up all my time.
Yeah, marginally favored for the Priest, according to our data, but suddenly, Dragon Highlander Priest, or Highlander, either version of Highlander Priest against Zoo these days. Not a huge sample we're probably working with. Zoo, not the most popular deck in the world, right?
And yeah, I was just going to say, this keep is interesting. This build of Zoo is interesting because, like, Priest struggles to get on-demand answers often. If you drop a Homunculus and then buff it into, like, a 4/6, outside of silence, not really a lot the Priest can do about this at any given point, right? Even as Dragon, you still need to draw those early minions to contest it. So an early buff can actually be a bit of a problem here. Let's see what happens. SamuelTsao did get the Flame Imp down early. Has that go like a Crawl? I imagine much more of a reasonable turn 2 play, at least in this matchup. But Muzzy also has access to that Pyromancer into a Talon Priest. I wonder if that's even thinking about it. Just drop the Pyro.
I was going to say,
and then say, you either trade,
right,
I win, or
right,
you don't, and I Talon Priest in trade.
Right. It's already thinking time about whether that Pyromancer would come down. Normally, most conventional builds of Zoo would struggle to find any kind of value trade here. It just so happens that Demon Fire,
double buff Zoo,
is kind of crazy.
Even Coin Blood Fury, right? Both buffs are available at this point. Does SamuelTsao want to do that? It would put his Imp on 1 if he traded, but it does mean that the Pyro's gone, so that 1 damage effect is down to what, Spirit Lash? But he could just trade and play a Golaka and build on that, but then that's not going to get the boost from Crystal Weave.
Right, I mean, that
everything
build.
doesn't slot together, right?
Right, if you trade and play Golaka, you're then sat looking at a hand that has Demon Fire and Crystal Weaver in it, and you have a beast on the board, not a demon. This is the other option.
Yeah,
we
of
didn't
course.
really consider.
Option
Demon
3.
Fire 3/2, keep your 3/2 alive. And that's just a straight up argument about what do I want? Do I want a 3/2 or a 4/1?
Also, as well, you can coin the Crystal Weaver into a 4/3 for the Imp now, which is a much stronger shape overall. Sure. The way this is shaping up for Muzzy is he'll probably be interested in dropping his Priest of Feast potentially on curve. Obviously dependent on the card draws, but then having the Shadow Visions, potentially just dig for Dragon Fire Potion and just say, I can just clear the board once afterwards and then we deal with it. Anduin's already there for the armor gain and the potentially even big board play later on after Bone Nest.
Yeah, Anduin, I think, actually ends up being a pretty clutch card in this matchup a lot of the time because Zoo gets very big these days.
It's a large Zoo.
Right. You're not, your late game turns are not tapping and playing an Imp Gang Boss and a Haunting Creeper anymore. It's slamming Bone Mares and Gul'dans and so on.
Yeah, it's not one of those zoos where you go pet like a goat and see a rabbit, right? It's one of the zoos where you see a tiger.
Right, exactly.
And lions.
And then you fall in the cage with the tiger and it mauls your face off.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Face, yes. Good decision.
If I wasn't here to keep you in check, I feel like you would just almost be a judge instead and be like, yes, that was the correct play, 1 point. And when you like judge Hearthstone like that, 1 point per correct play, as opposed to winning the game.
As discussed with TJ earlier, my life has just been one long Simon Cowell impression.
Yeah. Oh no, which one does that make me?
Louis Walsh.
I knew you'd go there.
Definitely Louis Walsh.
He's Irish, right? I'm Irish. There you go. Invalidated. Okay. Here comes the Kazakh's Potion, going for the 5. 5, really nice number versus Zoo, just because you can go for that 4 AoE damage, which is pretty nice. But freeze 2, draw 2. You'd be happy with that, I think. Command Librarian feels like a really weird card in Zoo. Like a 1-mana 2/1 in this current climate isn't that great, right? Look at Mole Man. It's a way better shape for a 1-drop.
Look at Patches. Take a long, hard look at Patches.
I mean, charge. Yeah. But you just add a card draw to any card, and you're like, okay, this card's good now.
Right.
It's actually insane.
I mean, Gnomish Inventor is like fringe playable in pre-decks. You know, a significant amount of people play it in their deck. It's a 4-mana 2/4. You just attach the words "draw a card" to anything, it suddenly goes through the roof.
Rip Drake.
Yeah, seriously.
We miss you.
Again, just dive into that Tavern Brawl. Get a nice
Yeah,
raw
that's
feeling.
I'm going to play that after this. I've not played any games yet. SamuelTsao definitely wondering here as he works out exactly where he wants to put this potion. If he wants to even deal with this Kazakus at this point. One of the things you always have to consider after a Kazakus turn if you're playing a board-focused deck is if they do the 4 damage anyway, well, that Kazakus is going to die. They'll do 3 damage to your face. Oh no, who cares?
No real tangible reaction from Muzzy that turn, but you have to feel like when that Blood Fury landed and went face, he had a moment of inner peace where he thinks he might just have this series won because Spirit Lash is the trump card to solve this board situation.
What the 1 damage source he needed.
Yep.
Pyromancer gone. This was almost perfect at this point. You look at the way the rest of his turn shaping up. He could just like free drop Potion of Healing next turn if he, you know, really needed to.
Well, the March of the Doom Guards is going to have to be dealt with at some point. Discarded the Bone Mare, but kept hold of the second Doom Guard, so he has a significant amount of pressure built up again over the coming turns now. This is not over just yet. Muzzy does have that freeze potion to stall, though. Then all he has to do is bridge the gap into Shadow Reaper and...
Yeah, it's that potion that actually gets me here. Like, yes, the 4 AoE damage earlier on, yeah, would have been good, whatever. But now you can just pretty much say, like, no to your opponent. They either go wide with minions, in which the attack isn't that much, or they play something big, you know, a Doom Guard, as we can see now. He's going to get some draws from the Imp there, but still, you can just freeze 2, and then go ha-ha and do it time. Oh, does he?
Priest Death now?
I guess, because you've seen both Doom Guards killing the Imp isn't that important. Because he could have, you know, Dustbreaker Death if he really was worried about the extra card draw, but you've seen 2 Doom Guards.
Right. So you develop more board presence that way to fight off future turns. You're gaining a little bit of extra heal from the Priest of the Feast, although you're foregoing the heal that you would have after the Kazakus Potion anyway, depending on what you draw for 2 mana or less off the Kazakus Potion.
I mean, the correct play is just Potion and freeze the 2 Doom Guards.
Sure. Yes, Raven.
Just saying. I'd go for that. I think that would work.
I like the slime.
Just develops a strong minion, right?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
kind of put
that's...
fear into them, don't you? Because if, well, now I have to kill this because I will just heal them. Almost an infinite amount going forward.
That is the big breaking point. The second Doom Guard isn't really a big deal. You know, if it trades into your Priest of the Feast, great. It hasn't hit you in the face again, and if it doesn't, then you've got that dealt with Shadow Reaper Anduin, and at that point, the problem becomes the rest of the minions that SamuelTsao might develop alongside it this turn, in which case, having a 3/6 on the board is very much to your benefit.
Yeah, SamuelTsao did get probably the best minion to play this turn in the form of the Dreadlord, though. Dodges the Anduin turn, and it does the extra point of damage, which allows Maxar's Imp to stick onto the board as well, and not have to trade with the Priest of the Feast. But I will say, the freeze and card draw is definitely scary. Muzzy just taking his time thinking about exactly what he wants to do here, but I struggle to see a world past Anduin.
Must consider.
It looks like the line is Anduin into...
Mainly because the 5 armor, right, as well.
Right. The line appears to be Anduin into Dustbreaker plus Kazakus Potion. That way you can lock out the smaller chunks of damage by wiping out with Dustbreaker, and then use Kazakus Potion to guarantee lock out 2 bigger minions. Muzzy disagrees, though. Huh. You can see the Dustbreaker come down this turn just to try and contest the board state.
This Homunculus is going to effectively block Dustbreaker out, actually trading with this Dreadlord. Always feels weird to delay Anduin. It's definitely not right to just slam it on 8 every time, but it just definitely feels weird here, mainly because you gain the armor, which makes you progressively more safe. and you're not really bothered about the hero power, you kill a Doomguard and then gain 5 armor, right? That's just a good card.
It's a lot easier to present the argument against slamming Anduin when you haven't played Raza, right? Because there's a good chance that you actually don't get value out of the hero power because the 2-mana hero power is still sometimes just too weak to chain 2 or 3 times, even if you have cheap cards to enable that.
Look at this hand,
exactly.
Right? But I just think the potion follow-up is so strong after Anduin because you draw 2 cards, you delay even more damage, and those 2 cards might just win you the game at that point. That might actually just be game. Because you could have presumed SamuelTsao going to more often than not tap every turn, and it's on 18 right now. Never mind the tap next turn as well. Never mind the homunculus either.
So maybe Muzzy's thought process here is that he's dealt with 1 wave of Doomguards. He's comfortable that he can deal with anything else, just going card for card with what he has. So the Shadow Reaper Anduin can be held back to deal with Blood Reaver Gul'dan, resummoning those Doomguards later on if they come down.
I'd just be worried about being dead on the Gul'dan turn.
Sure. I mean, it's possible. That can be the case, but he is very much in control because a lot of the other big threats are gone from the deck. He's just seen the 2nd Corridor Creeper hit the board.
Okay.
He's just seen a Bone Mare go down as well as the 2 Doomguards. So there aren't many huge minions that are going to come down and threaten him unless that Blood Reaver Gul'dan lands.
This game's getting awfully spicy though because
it's getting pretty close.
This isn't Q block. You ain't just summoning Doomguards and a Void Lord. There are a lot of small minions. Is what been. Is it 2
Malkazar's Imp, a Flame Imp, 2
Homunculus?
Doomguards.
2 Homunculus as well. If this one dies, of course. That's a
No,
lot.
I think this is just the first one.
Oh, is it still the first one? What do I know? But yeah, the Dreadlord as well being a problem. Like, that gets scary.
Yep.
With this deck. You said Gul'dan was bad. And you should never play it. Don't listen to this guy, guys.
If you draw it on 9 or 10, it's pretty good.
That's when you draw it. It's like why Raza's good. If you draw it ready for 5, just on 5, perfect. If you draw Anduin on 8, perfect. Saul's now getting angry with my Hearthstone analysis.
Well, we found our answer. That Psychic Scream pickup is checkmate for Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
It is one hell of an answer. Mainly because, not necessarily because SamuelTsao is dead or not after that, because there's still no Raza. Raza could be the last card in Muzzy's deck, right? But by playing Gul'dan, you lose tap. And no tap with Zoo is kind of rough, right? You're really reliant on that being the last push. You've got your opponent low, maybe 2 hero powers are needed to kill your opponent. With Gul'dan, fine, done. But no Raza is still a problem. Muzzy is not out of the woods quite yet. But we'll see what happens here because suddenly this Velen has to be dealt with as well. This all gets a little bit tricky in terms of, I think they're tiptoeing around threats at this point now.
So many possibilities.
I would find it very difficult if I was SamuelTsao to not play Gul'dan this turn.
Agreed.
Especially because you can even trade the 5/2 into Velen. The 1/5 can go in if you get Dreadlord, and then it's just you don't even lose Doomguards at this point.
It's so scary from Samuel's perspective though, because he hasn't seen Dragonfire, he hasn't seen Psychic Scream, he hasn't seen Pint-Size Horror. He hasn't seen Anduin. He's essentially seen 0 AoE come out apart from the Spirit Match. So, like, how confident can you possibly be that this board sticks around?
Averagely confident.
Okay.
I will just say very quickly there, I said see if you get Dreadlord trade, but he had exactly 7 demons dead.
Right.
So he could have whiffed if he didn't do it first. So the preemptive trade was absolutely fine. Is Muzzy just going to scream? And let's be honest though, there's every chance that if Scream happens this turn, then he could just rip Doomguard next turn. You know, it doesn't mean you're not allowed to draw the cards anymore.
Yep.
Like, you could just rip Doomguard into Doomguard, call it a day. definitely not an easy turn. Raza has appeared now in hand, but when do you play it? Right, when do you have the rune? I guess you have to go Anduin first at any given point, then into Raza to get something to happen, because then you can utilize the 0 mana hero powers to stabilize the board after having spent 5 mana on Raza.
The Anduin right now, he would take, what, 13 power off the board here, and then 3, 7, 8 would be remaining. And then the turn after, he can work with Raza to either set up a lethal of his own if he can afford the opportunity to do that, or just start pinging away minions. Yeah, I mean, I just about, got to this as Muzzy was leaning towards it as well, but this looks like a very strong line to me as well, because he can back this up with the Psychic Scream the turn after, and then still have Anduin develop behind that already, then follow that up with Raza, and suddenly that's a much bigger momentum shift than starting to do it the other way around.
That was ours 15 damage.
So many bloody decisions.
Yeah, gonna go there. How would you kill him? That's the decision that needs to be made. Bowmare, not a true surprise of Bowmare being at least the given choice here. Hero Powering and Blood Fury Potion this turn doesn't really make much sense. You gain a 5/5 just after Anduin as well. But where do you put the Bowmare? What gets the most value? Where do you throw the Hero Power? You can trade the Imp into the 3/2 and just use the Dreadlord 1 damage, Hero Power face. It's very close.
It is, but going back to that previous turn where it was Psychic Scream versus Anduin, this is again another plus point for making this play, because now you Psychic Scream Samuel a deck full of whiffs.
Yeah, drawing
a minion that does not immediately damage you is a whiff at this point. It doesn't really matter what that minion is. So with the Doomguard's already dead, he puts himself in a vastly superior position.
Also, I take it all back. You do not trade an Imp in. Of course, you put your opponent to 3. This is... yeah. And there we go. SamuelTsao gets there with Zoo against the Highlander Dragon Priest of Muzzy. An extremely close series. But what a day of Hearthstone we've had so far. True underdog stories going on.
Ridiculous stuff, honestly. When you
ridiculous
with that voice crack as well, yeah. When you look at some of the names these players have had to push through to get to this point, the likes of Kalento, Muzzy, it goes on and on and on and on. And for Doc Pone and SamuelTsao, two people who are essentially part-timers in comparison to everyone in this field, to come out as group winners is an incredible achievement for both of them.
Yeah, I mean, we asked a lot of the players, as you can see there. SamuelTsao is the winner of Group B, and what an amazing group that was. We asked a lot of the players, how difficult is it to get into this? Who are you deeming the best players in the tournament? And everyone said a lot of names, but I'll be honest, these two names didn't really pop up because they're more of an unknown quantity.
Right.
But guess what? They're not going to be unknown much longer as they keep making this kind of level of impact.
Yeah, if anything, people had a lot of respect for Doc Pone's lineup, but we didn't hear any glowing testimonies about them as players, but they've proven everyone wrong so far.
Yeah, but that's enough from us. Let's go and hear from SamuelTsao himself, as is with Frodan on the stage.
Samuel, in your first match, you mentioned you were very nervous and that affected your play. Do you feel like the second series you were able to play to your potential?
因为第一场比赛结束之后，你接受采访说自己有点紧张嘛，然后觉得第二场是不是有些好些了？
因为我有调整好状况，所以好一点了。因为他们也有安慰我说，下一场就是再准备好下一场就好。
I definitely made some adjustments, and also I get some really good advice from Tom, and just told me to focus on the game. So I felt I felt better than the first game.
Today, both of the underdogs were able to win the group, not even just advance through, but go in first place. Do you think that encourages you, or what kind of message does that send to everyone else?
其实今天两个小组其实可能不被别人看好的一些选手都最后也2-0获胜了，所以说你觉得这会和其他的一些选手传达什么信息呢？
因为我觉得就是能来参加世界赛，大家实力都是非常强的，所以就是谁能出现都不是很意外这样子。
I think everyone is in this tournament for a reason, so we have a stacked lineup, so it shouldn't surprise anyone whoever advanced from the group. So.
All right, and I guess I also want to ask you, who do you think will get second in your group? Who do you think is advancing with you to the quarterfinals?
你觉得在这个同组还有哪位选手可以出现呢？
不好说。
That's tough to say for him.
All right, gonna play diplomatic there, but congratulations, SamuelTsao is going to the quarterfinals.